There's one, Mac.
You got one?
Yeah.
I'll get out of your way here then.
My first pike on a fly reel.
Well, how's it feel?
It feels good. Hi, I'm Bob Kirkpatrick. I've got Mac Warner with me from Moose Jaw. We're up at Wapawekka Lake, about 150 miles northeast of Prince Albert. And we're staying at Northern Echo Lodge. Based out of there today. Oh, this guy's giving me a fight, Mac.
I don't think it's a very big one, but they're scrappy on the fly rod. If you let a little more line out, you'll probably find it a little easier to get them in.
Yeah, this is a trick out of these boats.
Yeah.
Where are you? Come here. There's a nice little pike. That's my first pike on a fly rod, and I've been looking forward to doing this for a long time. In fact, it's my first time in a float tube. We're going to go back a little bit earlier today when the weather was a little nicer. Mac was teaching me what all I needed to know to get into belly boats, and we'll go back and show you how the day started out. Well, Mac, I got my waders on, I got my flippers in hand, but I've never been in a float tube before. Now, you're going to explain to me what I have to do to get fishing in a float tube.
So I'll go through it with you here. Now, this is an apron here, and I'll mention that later on. But the big thing here, of course, is the seat in the float tube. And this is one of the reasons we wear neoprene waders, because you're sitting right down in this seat. So you're sitting in water, so you have to stay dry. And the strap here keeps you from falling through the bottom. And your legs go through these two holes in the front here. So your feet are down underneath, and you just have, like I said before, kick with your feet, and away you go. And the apron, all you do after you're in the float tube and sitting in the water is simply pull this up and hook it on these little D-rings here like this, one on each side. And then you have a work apron here in the front. And what this does, it gives you room to put tackle, fly line, if you're working a fly rod, and things like that. And just go out and kick with your flippers, and away you go, and enjoy yourself.
So obviously, with the fins on, anytime you want to move somewhere, you're traveling backwards.
You're traveling backwards in these things. That may be or may not be a drawback to it. You kind of have to turn around once in a while and see where you're going. But yeah, you're basically traveling backwards.
Well, you've got another big job ahead of you. I've done very little fly fishing, and never with a big, heavy, wind-resistant fly for pike. So you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah.
Let's get this in the water and see what happens.
Okay.
Okay, Mac, got the flippers on. What's next?
Okay, Bob. The next thing will be getting your feet into the float tube.
Okay.
Okay, and you get one.
This is easy with the flippers, isn't it?
That's, yeah. One down each side there like that. And like I explained there a minute ago, you pick up there now.
Now go frontwards or backwards?
Backwards. Turn around and walk in backwards. It's awful awkward walking frontwards with your flippers on. So you just walk in gently that way. And once you've got
I'm gone now.
there you go.
Oh, all right.
Just like that.
It's comfortable.
Now
I got to figure out how to get back to you to get my rod.
That's right. So you got to kick.
Oh, this isn't going to be too bad.
Now remember to do up your apron, because that's your work platform. There's your rod.
All right. You stay clear when I start flinging this thing.
I'll get mine and I'll be right with you.
Okay. Okay, Mac, we're out here now in the float tubes. I've had a little bit of practice maneuvering with this. I don't think it's going to be too bad unless that wind gets up. But this is new to me. So what do I do first?
Well, with fly casting, Bob, it's totally different than using a spinning rod. Fly rods, as you can see here, are a lot longer than your traditional spinning rods. The line here with a fly system is your weight, whereas a jig or a lure or a spoon or whatever on a spinning rod is your weight, which pulls the line out. Now with the fly system, you have to pull the line off the reel by hand like this, okay? And the action of the rod, as you flip the rod back and forth, that puts the line out. And of course the secret to this is a proper technique in the casting to make the rod and line work together. Now, the other thing that you have to have here, and we have, of course, already set up, is your line has to match the rod. Now, I'm using an 8-weight system here, and that means that I have a number 8 fly line to match my number 8 rod, okay? And I think yours is the same, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, that's right. So that means that the lighter the rod, like a 5-weight is a lot lighter rod, and
yes,
you're casting a lot lighter line.
That's right.
So you're actually casting the line and not the fly.
That's exactly what you're doing. The fly just goes along for the ride on the end of the line.
Hey, Mac, what type of a leader system are we using for this?
Well, on this one here, Bob, we're using a piece of 40-pound mono for a leader to tie on the fly line here and to connect our fly to the line. And I like using the 40-pound mono because it gives you a soft, supple connector to the fly line, and it's very short, as you can see, so you don't need anything long here, especially on a sink tip line, because it's going to go down. The sink tip line rides along fairly close to the bottom, and the fly will ride up a little bit like this, which makes it attractive to the fish. It's really good system.
Hey, Mac, well, I think I'm ready to give it a try. So
you're ready to give it a go, are you? Okay. Just strip off some line there.
Now, I don't have to cast very far out for these pike, do I?
No, you don't. A lot of people think you have to cast a long ways, but you really don't.
Well, this isn't real delicate with this.
This is not what you would call finesse casting. You got that right.
There. And just strip it in like this?
Just strip it in like that.
Yeah, now what exactly do I do if I get a hit?
When you get a hit, all you do is lift your rod tip like this, and the fight is on. Now, you can do two things. One, you can continue to strip the line in by hand, or you can let the fish take the line out and work it off the reel, whichever is more comfortable for you to do. Normally, if you have a small fish, stripping it in by hand like that's not too bad. But if you have a larger fish, it's much, much easier to play it on the reel. Much easier.
Now, am I doing this right here?
Yep, I think so. That's the idea. Get them up on the reel there and play it on the reel.
Wasn't very big pike, but it was lots of fun.
These big streamers, they take them pretty readily too. They're fairly large flies, and they hit these things and they hit them pretty hard sometimes.
Well, Mac, I think I'll get this one back in the water. Let's go catch some more. That was a lot of fun.
Okay, Bob, let's do it. I've got one on, Bob. Oh, and he's gone down into the weeds here.
Well, I guess that's some of the hazards. Is he wrapped up on you?
I don't know.
I guess that's some of the hazards fishing for pike. One of their prime habitat areas is these shallow, weedy bays. It's nice and warm in here. There's lots of bait fish, and the flies that we're using are representing bait fish. So I guess that's some of the hazards. You got to fish the weeds.
That it is, Bob, and he's either wrapped up in the weeds real good down there, or I've got a monster on. I don't know which.
Well, but maybe I'll get my line in.
He's sure putting up a hole here.
And we'll have to paddle over there and see if we can get him out.
Okay.
Well, I'm snagged up in the weeds too. There, I'm out. Yeah, that's one of the hazards. There's sure lots of weeds in here, but that's where the pike are. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes you can always find small pike in these shallow, weedy bays, but the bigger pike will spend some time in the shallow bays, and then they'll spend a lot of their time out in the cool, deep water. They'll go down 50, 60 feet. So quite often you'll find, you'll always find pike in the shallow bays, but not always the big ones, and that's why. There's all the stories about pike lose their teeth in the summertime. They're hard to catch. One of the reasons that they never lose their teeth, one of the reasons they're harder to catch in the summertime is once the water temperature warms up to about 75 degrees, they don't feed as often, but they never lose their teeth. That's just another myth or another excuse that fishermen use when they don't catch anything. But you can almost always find the smaller pike in these bays. Now, these are the same bays that they use to spawn in. They're muddy and weedy, and there's some rocks on the shoreline. So some of the small males will hang around here throughout the whole season, or until all the bait fish are eaten up. You having any luck with that, Mac?
There we go, we got him. Well, he's not a very big one, but oh man, did he mangle up my fly here. Well, we'll try and get this fly out of it. This fly that I'm using here, by the way, has a lot of reflecting materials in it that resembles a minnow quite a bit. And I suspected that's, there we go, suspected that's probably why he took it. But he sure chewed it up here. I'm going to have to take this one off, I think, and put on a new one and start over again. But this one, I think, has kind of had the bird, so we'll let this guy go here and tie on a new fly and start over again. Come on, fella, swim away here.
Mac sure didn't leave much left of that fly.
No, there isn't much left of this one, so I got my clippers out here. I'm going to clip this one off and tie on a new one. There we go.
Now, you tie all your own flies, don't you?
Yes, pretty well all of my flies I tie myself. And I enjoy tying flies. It's a good pastime in the winter months. There's a variety of the different pike flies that I use. If it wasn't so windy, I'd try one of these surface flies here. Like this little guy here, for example, I like to work in among weeds and things. This is a mouse pattern, complete with tail, little eyes on it. Of course, the fish underneath can't see the eyes, but it's a very effective little fly in calm water over weeds and things for a pike. It's a real good fly. But in this breeze that we've got here today, it's not going to be very feasible using something like that. Okay, this fly that I'm going to put on here, Bob, this one's got a mylar tubing body on it, as you can see here.
That's just to add the flash to the fly?
Add the flash to the body part of it. And the synthetic nylon wing material here also has a lot of flash to it. So when it's going through the water, it gives a lot of reflection off the sunlight in the water. And it looks quite a bit like a minnow, a large minnow going through the water. And pike hone in on that flash, reflective action of the fly. And that's what they strike at.
Now, you can use just about any color for pike, can't you? Is there certain colors that seem to be better than others?
Not really. I've used all kinds of flies, fly patterns, I guess, with different colors in them. And reds and whites, greens, blues, and purples seem to be the best for this type of fly. You can also make up flies with fancy wings on them. And, of course, like the other one, the mouse there. But this fly pattern here seems to work really well for pike. The white reflective nylon material in here really works well.
Well, the way that last pike tore the fly up, I don't think I'd want to spend a whole bunch of time or money on flies. You're only going to get one or two out of each one.
Yeah, sometimes synthetic material seems to last a little better than some of the other natural materials, but no, they chew them up really good, and they don't last too long.
Well, since you tie all your own, why don't we get you to show us how to tie one up a little later on in the show?
Oh, for sure, we can do that. It takes about 5 minutes to tie up a fly like this, and so you don't spend a lot of time, and the materials used in a fly like this are definitely not expensive.
All right.
Okay, what we're going to do here today is show you how to tie one of the flies that we've been using for catching pike here on the fly rod. It's a very simple fly to tie, and it's very colorful. And without much further ado, we'll get right into the tying of this fly here. First thing we do, of course, is put our thread on our hook. Now, what I'm using here, I'm using a number 4/0 hook, which is a fairly large hook that you need to use for tying pike flies. Now, this material that I'm putting on here is basically a filler for the body of the fly. I put a fair bit of this on, and over the top of this we'll put some mylar tubing. But this here will just help fill up the body of the fly a little bit. That should be plenty, I think. Now, what I'm going to do here is put some half hitches in here to hold that in place, and then I'm going to cut this thread off like so. And then I'm going to put on this piece of mylar tubing. This is a very colorful yellow mylar tubing that reflects light really well, especially if you happen to get in an area where there's muddy or colored water. This will reflect light really well. Then we tie the thread back on and simply take the front end of this mylar tubing and tie it down behind the eye of the hook, like so. Like that. Then we put a half hitch in it to hold everything in place. Another thing I like to do is take the points of my scissors and take this mylar tubing underneath here and just kind of pull it apart a little bit, and it makes the tail of the fly stick out here a little better. There we go. Pardon me. Looks a little better. Now, what we're going to use on this one is red and yellow with a little tuft of white in between. Now, this stuff here, as you can see, is fairly long, and what we do is use a very small amount. You don't need a lot of material for tying these flies. A sparse fly is much better than a real heavy tied one. Make this about, this fly is going to be overall probably close to 5 inches long here. And we'll just tie this in. And trim this little excess off the front end. Okay. We'll put on a little tuft of white here. Doesn't take very much. There, that's done. Then we'll put in a little tuft of yellow. Again, very small amount is all it takes. There we have that done. And we'll put one more little tuft of red on the top. There. Now that's basically all there is to tying one of these type of pike flies. Very simple fly to tie, but very, very effective. This works in the water really well. It's very colorful, a real attractant to the pike, and a very simple fly to tie and very effective.
Mac, here's another one. These pike are definitely relating to the edge of the weeds. Look at this one's covered with weeds.
They get right down in those weeds, and they sure like to hide in that stuff, and it makes it really hard to get them out of there, but they're definitely
tangled up and they're pretty good. Now pike are the top predator in any body of water they're in. And they're real sight feeders. So what they'll do is they'll hide in the weeds or around rocks, and when they see any prey come by, they just slash out and grab it, and they can travel at real short bursts of speed of about 30 miles an hour, so it doesn't take them long to get a hold of their prey. And if you've ever looked at a pike's teeth, they're all recurved, like they're curved backwards. So once they grab onto something, it's almost impossible for them to get away again. Now, odd time you'll catch a fish that's been mangled up real bad, and you can tell that a pike's got a hold of it, and I don't know if the fish was fortunate enough to get away or not, because they're scarred up pretty bad. But this guy gave me a good little fight. He's been scarred up a little bit too. I don't know what got a hold of him, probably another pike, because there isn't any predators in these waters that feed on pike other than other larger pike. I'm going to get this guy back in, and we'll see if we can get a few more. I just got one on. Now, we've been talking all day about fishing in weed beds, and we decided to move out. There's lots of other areas that you can find pike. Oh, this guy's going to run right under my feet. Oh! Some of the fun of float tubing. Anyway, we've got a little stream coming into the lake here, and that's another area that pike will key in on when there's fresh water coming in. It washes food out, and they'll just sit along. They're opportunists. They'll sit and wait where the stream's coming in, and anything that gets washed down the stream, they'll take. Now, there's a couple other areas in the lake that you can look for pike. It doesn't have to be weeds. Main lake points, if they're rocky, especially if there's a little bit of weed growth on them. Mud flats, that's a spawning area of pike. Right under my feet. Muddy bays, that's the spawning area of pike, so that's where they'll be earlier in the season, and there will be small pike hanging around in those areas throughout the season. Narrows, any place that there's a narrows or a cluster of islands, and you get a little bit of wind blowing through and it creates a current that acts the same as a stream. Ooh, this guy come right out of the water. So, you know, those are some of the other areas. I know we're fishing weed beds to start with, and that's probably where most people begin to look for pike, but boy, we just moved into the stream area, 2 or 3 casts, and I got one on. So there's lots of different places you can look, and this is just one of them. Boy, this guy swallowed this thing. I think I'm going to have to get a hold of some pliers. Now, being my lack of experience in a float tube, I got to remember where I packed everything in here. I'm sure I got some pliers, and I'll just hold this guy in the water. He took this fly pretty good. There's the pliers. I should probably have these secured onto a string in case I lose them. Oh boy, he's got it in there deep. Ooh! See now, good thing I hooked my rod onto the side of the belly boat, or it'd be gone. I think he's down between my legs somewhere. There he is. And they're slippery devils to hold on to. I'm going to lay him up here on this apron. They'll clamp their mouth shut every time you get close to them, so that's why it's hard to get at the hook. No, I think we're going to have to, don't like sticking my fingers in these things, but I can see the hook in there, I just can't get at it. There we go. He mangled that fly pretty good. Now, put those back in there. Now, I hope I didn't keep this guy out of the water too long. I'm going to have to hold him here for a few minutes and see if I can revive him. Nice little pike though. Again, just one of the things you want to look for. You don't have to be in the weeds all the time to catch the pike. There's lots of areas you can look. Mac, it's sure a beautiful ending to a great day.
Well, it sure is a beautiful evening here. Nice sunset. Just beautiful, beautiful day. Couldn't ask for anything better.
Well, we'd sure like to thank you for inviting me along or talking me into coming on this trip and arranging it for me. And also I'm going to have to thank Jim and Carol at Northern Echo Lodge. They've been just terrific. Man, I think I gained several pounds here of those meals that Carol cooks. It's just been wonderful.
Well, sure glad to have you along here, Bob, and to do this show with you. It's been a wonderful experience for me, too, and we've had a wonderful time here.